You know, it is genuinely rare that we get to talk about someone whose name is effectively a synonym for progress.
It really is.
And I don't mean that in some kind of metaphorical sense. I mean, there is literally a law named after this man that has defined the speed limit of human innovation for the last half-century.
It's true. Usually on these deep dives, we're looking at, big historical movements or scientific concepts.
Broad ideas.
But today, it's all about a singular individual, a man who, and this is not an exaggeration, engineered the bedrock of the modern world.
We are talking, of course, about Gordon Moore.
The co-founder of Intel.
The Moore in Moore's Law.
A titan of Silicon Valley in every sense of the word.
A titan, absolutely. But here's the thing that really struck me while we were preparing for this.
What's that?
When you hear titan of industry or Silicon Valley founder, you have a specific archetype in your head, right?
Oh, completely. The brash, loud, charismatic stage walker.
Yes. The guy in the black turtleneck with a leather jacket making these sweeping pronouncements and, trying to colonize Mars.
The move fast and break things archetype. Yeah. We are conditioned to think that innovation requires this massive ego and a megaphone.
Exactly. But Gordon Moore, he was the complete opposite.
A polar opposite.
He was a quiet, introverted chemist. He passed away recently on March 24th, 2023, at the age of 94.
Peacefully in Waimea, Hawaii.
And honestly, reading through all the coverage, it just felt like the end of an entire era.
It really was. His passing marked the closing of, I'd say, the first chapter of the digital revolution. And you are so right about his demeanor. He was not a celebrity CEO in the modern sense.
Not at all.
He was a scientist first. He cared about the data, not the drama.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. Most of you listening, you know the law. You know that technology gets twice as fast and half as cheap every couple of years.
It's why we all just expect it.
It's the reason you expect your new phone to be better than your old one. But very few people know the man who actually came up with it, or the fact that he did it almost by accident.
That's the part that's so fascinating.
So we are going to explore how a kid with a childhood chemistry set ended up with a net worth of $7 billion, a $5 billion foundation, and a legacy that literally sits in your pocket right now in the form of your smartphone.
It is an incredible journey. From Pescadero, California, to the absolute cutting edge of the information age. And the source material we're working with today is fantastic.
It is.
We have biographical records, details on his scientific career, the corporate history of Intel, and then a really deep look at his massive philanthropic footprint.
So let's unpack this. Let's go back to the very beginning, because usually, superhero origin stories start with a radioactive spider or something.
Right.
Gordon Moore's origin story starts with a Christmas present.
It does. But first, we have to place him in time and space to really get where he came from. Gordon Earl Moore was born on January 3rd, 1929 in Pescadero, California.
Which, for those who don't know, the geography of the West Coast isn't exactly a metropolis.
No, not at all. It's a small coastal town, very rural, especially back then. His father, Walter Harold Moore, was a sheriff.
A sheriff?
Well, he was a sheriff in San Mateo County. He later got promoted to deputy sheriff, and they moved the family to Redwood City, which was a bit bigger.
So you have this very grounded law and order background. It's not an academic family, not a tech family.
Right. And his mother, Florence Elmira Williamson, was a homemaker. So this was a very traditional middle-class American upbringing.
There's no silver spoon here.
Absolutely not. And certainly no high-tech influence yet. The concept didn't really exist.
And here's the first detail from the school records that I just absolutely loved.
Okay.
When he started school in 1935, the faculty actually made a note about him. They explicitly noted his introverted personality.
Wow. They were flagging that back then.
Yeah, they were. It's right there in the records.
Which is fascinating when you consider what he went on to do. I mean, leading one of the most aggressive, fast-growing companies in history requires a certain fortitude.
You would think so.
But introverted doesn't mean passive. It often means observant, deeply thoughtful.
That's a great point. He wasn't the loud kid in the back of the class causing trouble. He's the kid watching everything, processing everything.
Taking it all in.
But then comes the aha moment. The year is 1940. Gordon is 11 years old. It's Christmas morning. And under the tree.
The chemistry set.
The chemistry set.
That simple gift arguably changed the trajectory of the 20th century. It's not an overstatement.
I love this because it perfectly captures that learner persona we talk about sometimes. A simple toy can dictate an entire career.
It's true.
He gets his set, he starts mixing things up.
Probably making small explosions, let's be honest.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's what 11-year-old boys do with chemistry sets.
It's a rite of passage.
But that was it. He was hooked. He decided, right then and there, at age 11, I'm going to be a chemist.
And notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, I want to be a computer scientist.
Because computer scientists didn't really exist yet. The field was basically a theoretical concept in a few labs.
Exactly. That career path was practically non-existent. He wanted to understand the physical world, the elements, the reactions.
The actual stuff.
Yes, the stuff. That desire to understand the material the world is made of is what eventually allowed him to build the hardware the digital world runs on. You can't code software if you don't have the silicon to run it on.
That's the fundamental truth. So he chases this chemistry dream. He goes to Sequoia High School, graduates in 1946. And the records show he was actually pretty into athletics there.
Which adds another layer, doesn't it? He wasn't just a bookworm locked in a lab.
No, he had that physical discipline too.
Right. Then he starts his higher education at San Jose State College.
What we now know as San Jose State University.
That's the one. He was there from 1946 to 1947, just for a couple of years. But he didn't stay there.
No, he transferred. He leveled up. He went to UC Berkeley.
Which is a major step up in terms of, research intensity. A huge leap.
And he thrives. He graduates with a BS in chemistry in 1950.
But for someone like Moore, a bachelor's degree was never going to be the end of the line. He wanted to go deeper.
He had to know more.
He had to. So he heads south to Caltech, the California Institute of Technology.
The big leagues.
This is where he gets his PhD in 1954. And I have to say, the title of his thesis is something else.
Oh, I have it right here. You have to read it. It sounds incredibly impressive, and I have basically no idea what it means.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right, deep breath. His thesis was infrared studies of nitric acid, the chloramines, and nitrogen dioxide. And then part 2 was observations concerning the photochemical decomposition of nitric oxide.
It's a mouthful.
It sounds like he was just studying how stuff breaks apart and reacts to light and heat.
Essentially, yes, that's a great summary, actually. It's deep physical chemistry. He was looking at the fundamental behaviors of molecules.
So why does that matter?
Well, while it sounds esoteric, that background in the physical properties of matter, how atoms behave, how they bond, how they decompose, that is the fundamental science you need to understand if you are going to eventually build transistors on a microscopic scale.
Ah, okay.
He was learning how to manipulate matter at the atomic level, even if he didn't know that's where it was headed yet.
So he's a certified genius chemist at this point, a doctor of chemistry. But before we leave his early life, we have to mention the other defining partnership of his life.
Betty Irene Whittaker.
Right. They met in 1947 while he was still an undergrad.
At a student government conference at Asilomar, of all places.
I love that. It's so collegiate and sweet. They got married in 1950.
And honestly, looking at the full timeline, she is just as important to the later part of the story as he is.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when we get to the philanthropy. We'll spend a lot of time on that.
But for now, we have Gordon Moore. PhD chemist, newly married, ready to enter the workforce.
So he does a brief stint of postdoctoral research at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory on the East Coast.
But the gravitational pull of the West Coast, and specifically this emerging tech scene, was just too strong.
This brings us to section 2 of our deep dive, the birth of Silicon Valley. And it starts with a group that has, hands down, the coolest nickname in corporate history.
The Traitorous 8.
It's so good. It sounds like a Tarantino movie.
It really does, and it fits the magnitude of what happened. So, Moore lands a job at the Shockley Semiconductor Laboratory.
Working for William Shockley.
The William Shockley,
Yep.
a Nobel Prize winner, a genius, MIT and Caltech alumnus.
This is the guy who co-invented the transistor.
He's the guy. So working for him should have been the dream job. It was like getting drafted by the best team in the league.
But it wasn't a dream.
No. Far from it. By all accounts, Shockley was an incredibly difficult manager.
Brilliant, but
Brilliant, yes, but erratic, paranoid, and domineering. Moore and 7 other brilliant young scientists and engineers, they just realized that they couldn't work under him anymore.
what was the breaking point?
They wanted to pursue their own research directions, specifically around using silicon, not germanium, for transistors. And Shockley was just blocking them. He wouldn't fund it.
So they did something that back in the 1950s just wasn't done.
They quit.
En masse. All 8 of them.
And that is the crucial context here. In the 1950s, corporate culture was about loyalty. You joined a company like IBM or AT&T, and you stayed there for life.
You had the gold watch at retirement.
Exactly. Leaving to start your own rival company, that was seen as betrayal. Hence,
The traitorous eight.
the traitorous eight.
And who came up with that name? Was it the media?
No, it was Shockley. He called them that. He viewed it as a personal mutiny. He was livid.
But this mutiny, this act of betrayal, effectively created the culture of Silicon Valley as we know it.
Yeah. It did. Moore and the others, including Robert Noyce, who we will talk about a lot more, left to form Fairchild Semiconductor.
With backing from an East Coast industrialist, Sherman Fairchild.
Right. And this was arguably the first venture-backed startup in the modern sense. They established the precedent that if you have a better idea and the current management won't listen,
You leave and build it. You're like,
you walk. And that DNA is still the core of the Valley today.
And at Fairchild, Moore wasn't just a bench scientist anymore. He got a promotion.
He was the director of research and development, a key role. He was steering the ship on what they were going to build next.
Which puts him in the perfect position for what comes next.
Because it is actually at Fairchild, not at Intel, where the famous law was born.
Okay, let's get into that.
Yeah.
Section 3, unpacking Moore's law. Because I think people toss this term around constantly. Oh, computers get faster, that's Moore's law. But what actually happened?
It all goes back to 1965. Moore is running R&D at Fairchild. They're at the top of their game. And a trade publication called Electronics Magazine approaches him.
It's the trade magazine.
Yep, and they ask him a pretty simple question. Predict what is going to happen in the semiconductor components industry over the next 10 years.
A 10-year prediction.
Yeah.
That is an eternity in tech. I mean, I can't even predict what app I'll be using in 10 months.
It's an impossible task, really. But Moore was in a unique position. He looked at the data they had at Fairchild. He looked at the integrated circuits they were actually building year over year. And he noticed a pattern.
The observation.
Right. The simple empirical observation. He saw that the number of components, so transistors, resistors, diodes, capacitors, all the little things they could cram onto a single dense integrated circuit.
It was growing.
It was doubling approximately every year.
Every single year. The complexity was doubling.
At that time, yes. So in his article, which was published on April 19th, 1965, he simply extrapolated that line. He drew a line on a graph and said, hey, this seems to be the trend. He speculated that this annual doubling would continue for at least 10 years.
So he wasn't stating a law of physics. He wasn't saying the electrons demand this.
No, not at all.
He was saying, hey, looking at our manufacturing curves, this is the trend. This is what seems to be economically viable.
Precisely. It was an economic and industrial observation. He was saying that it would become economically feasible to double the complexity every year because they were getting better at manufacturing.
Now, there is a famous revision to this, right? Because today, we usually hear every 18 months or every 2 years.
Yes. In 1975, 10 years after the original prediction, right on schedule, Moore revisited his data.
He checked his homework.
He did. And the industry was maturing. The processes were getting more complex, more expensive. So he revised the forecast rate. He slowed it down.
To what?
To approximately every 2 years.
Okay, so from doubling every year to doubling every 2 years.
Correct. And that's the version that has more or less held true for decades.
And interestingly, Moore didn't call it Moore's law.
He did not.
He was way too modest for that, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. He would have never done that. It was actually Carver Mead, another legendary figure in the industry at Caltech, who popularized the phrase Moore's law.
That tracks perfectly with the introvert profile. He makes a world-changing prediction, and someone else has to come along and name it after him.
But here's the truly fascinating insight about Moore's law. It's the psychological impact it had.
What do you mean?
It became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
How so?
It wasn't that the technology automatically improved at that rate. It was that the entire industry, Intel, their competitors, the equipment manufacturers, everyone, they all looked at Moore's law as a schedule.
As a roadmap.
A roadmap, exactly. They said, okay, Moore says we need to double the transistor count by 1972. If we don't, our competitors will. So they poured money and R&D into making sure they hit that target. It became a target for miniaturization that drove the entire global electronics industry.
That is wild. It's like if a runner said, humans will run a 3-minute mile by next year, and then every runner in the world trained harder just to make sure that prediction came true.
That is a perfect analogy. It set the pace, it forced the innovation, it forced the miniaturization that gave us everything from the PC to the smartphone.
So Moore has revolutionized the industry at Fairchild. He has made the prediction, but he isn't done. He's about to build the vehicle that will really drive this whole thing home.
The big one.
Section 4, the Intel era.
July 1968. This is the big moment. Gordon Moore and Robert Noyce, who was the charismatic face of the operation, they called him the mayor of Silicon Valley, decide to strike out on their own again.
Leaving Fairchild, the company they helped build.
Leaving Fairchild, they founded a new company. And do you know what they called it initially?
I do, and it is terrible. NM Electronics.
NM for Noyce Moore. It sounds like a generic shell company you set up for tax purposes.
It really does. Or an appliance repair shop. Thankfully, they eventually changed it to Intel Corporation.
For integrated electronics, much snappier.
Much, much better. But the founding story has these hilarious details that show just how improvised it all was. Moore described himself as an accidental entrepreneur. He never set out to be a CEO.
He was a scientist who had to learn to be a businessman.
And there is this great detail about their first business plan.
Oh, yes. This is my favorite part.
In a documentary, Moore admitted that Intel's first business plan was just one page, double-spaced,
Okay.
and had a lot of typos in it.
Can you imagine? Today, if you pitch a venture capitalist with a typo-riddled one-pager, you get laughed out of the room. They'd shred it in front of you.
You wouldn't even get in the door.
Yeah.
But these were guys with a track record. The quality of the plan didn't matter as much as the quality of the minds behind it.
The pedigree was everything.
It just shows the contrast. You have this messy, humble, typo-filled start, and it grows into Intel, the massive corporation that defined the PC era.
Moore's leadership timeline there is really impressive. He wasn't just a founder who stepped back and cashed out.
No, he was in the trenches.
He was executive vice president until 1975. Then he became president in 1975. Then he took the big chair, chairman and CEO, from April 1979 to April 1987.
That is the boom time. That is the 80s, the rise of the personal computer, the IBM PC.
Exactly. He steered the ship through the most critical growth phase imaginable, and even after that, he stayed on as chairman until 1997, and then chairman emeritus after that. He was Intel for life.
We have to talk about the tech they built, because under the leadership of Noyce, Moore, and their third partner, the intense Andy Grove,
The trifecta.
what were their roles?
People say Noyce was the visionary, the big picture guy. Moore was the technology genius, the one who understood the physics. And Grove was the operator, the guy who made the trains run on time, often by terrifying people.
And under them, Intel pioneered two massive things that are in every device you own.
Computer memory and the microprocessor.
We take these for granted now, but Intel started as a memory company, right? Making RAM.
That was their first big product. But then they made the crucial pivot to microprocessors, the brain of the computer, the CPU. That shift was largely driven by Moore's deep understanding of what the technology could do, where the curve was going.
He can see the future because he's the one who drew the map.
Exactly.
And the recognition followed. In 1990, Moore received the National Medal of Technology. And the citation specifically mentions seminal leadership in bringing American industry the two major post-war innovations in microelectronics, large-scale integrated memory, and the microprocessor.
And he goes on to say he was fueling the information revolution, which is not an overstatement.
Not in the slightest.
Yeah.
So he wins the game of capitalism, he builds a company, he changes the world. And as of February 2023, just before he passed, his net worth was reported at $7 billion.
A staggering sum, just mind-boggling.
But this is where the story pivots again, and for me, it's the most impressive part. What did he do with that money?
He didn't buy islands or super yachts?
Well, maybe he got a nice fishing boat.
He definitely bought a fishing boat. We know that for a fact.
But he and Betty decided to give most of it away. Let's talk about the passionate philanthropist. Section 5.
This is where we see the human side of Moore, his personal values, come to the forefront. In the year 2000, he and Betty established the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation.
And they didn't just dip their toes in the water.
No. They started it with a gift of about $5 billion.
$5 billion. That is immediate heavyweight status in the philanthropy world. That's Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation level.
It is. And their focus areas were very specific and very personal. They didn't just sprinkle it around. The first one, environmental conservation.
And the why here is great. It wasn't some abstract save the planet thing. It was because Gordon Moore was an obsessive fisherman.
Since childhood, he absolutely loved fishing. Bass, marlin, salmon, trout. The records show he traveled the world with Betty and his sons, Kenneth and Stephen, just to fish.
And because he spent so much time outdoors in these pristine environments, he saw the degradation of these places firsthand.
He saw what was being lost, so the fishing directly led to the saving.
So where did they focus?
The foundation targeted huge, critical ecosystems, the Andes Amazon basin, so Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, all those countries, some of the most biodiverse and threatened places on Earth.
And closer to home, the San Francisco Bay Area.
Right. Preserving the wetlands and the natural beauty of the place where he lived and worked, he was deeply connected to that landscape.
He even served as a director of Conservation International for a while.
He did. And in 2002, he received the Order of the Golden Ark from Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, specifically for this conservation work.
That is a cool award name. Order of the Golden Ark.
It's a legitimate and very prestigious conservation award. But he didn't stop at nature. He also poured a ton of money back into the thing that made it all possible: science.
Starting with his alma mater, Caltech.
He had a long relationship with them. He was the chair of the board of trustees there from 1993 to 2000. But in 2001, he and Betty dropped an absolute bombshell.
The big one.
A $600 million donation to Caltech.
Whoa. At the time, that must have been a record.
It was the largest single gift to an institution of higher education ever at that time. It was just unheard of.
And what was the goal?
His stated goal was simple: keep Caltech at the forefront of research. He knew that expensive, fundamental research needs funding that doesn't always have an immediate commercial payoff. He wanted to fund the kind of science that leads to the next Moore's Law.
And speaking of expensive research, telescopes.
The TMT, the 30-meter telescope.
In 2007, they donated $200 million for this project.
Another massive check to be built in Hawaii on Mauna Kea. This thing is a beast.
Just how big is it?
The main mirror will be 30 meters across. That is nearly 3 times the size of the current record holder. It's a generational leap in our ability to see the universe.
It's fitting, isn't it? The guy who focused on the tiniest things in the universe, transistors, ends up funding a machine to look at the biggest things in the universe.
The micro and the macro. There's a beautiful symmetry there. He's enabling exploration at both extremes of scale.
And we can't forget UC Berkeley, his other alma mater.
No, he was very generous there, too. Over the years, something like $166 million in gifts and grants.
For kinds of things.
Material science, physics, genomics, data science. All the fields that grew out of the revolution he started, he was watering the roots.
There is one more pillar to the philanthropy, and this one seems to have been driven by Betty just as much, if not more.
The Betty Irene Moore Nursing Initiative.
This is so important. They didn't just focus on the high-tech, sexy science. They targeted nursing care in the SF Bay Area and Sacramento.
And they pledged $100 million to establish a brand new nursing school at UC Davis.
Why nursing?
They realized that nurses are the front line of healthcare. They spend the most time with patients, improving their training, their working conditions. That has a massive ripple effect on health outcomes for everyone. It was a very systems-level way of thinking about healthcare.
It's such a well-rounded legacy. Chips, rainforests, telescopes, and nurses.
It reflects a mind that sees the interconnectedness of systems, whether it is an ecosystem of animals in the Amazon, an ecosystem of healthcare workers, or an ecosystem of silicon components on a chip.
Let's move to Section 6, the honors. Because after all that, the awards just piled up. We already mentioned the Order of the Golden Ark, but the list goes on and on.
It's a long list. He was elected to the National Academy of Engineering way back in 1976. He got the IE Medal of Honor in 2008, which is the highest award in electrical engineering.
The National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2009. The Dan David Prize in 2010.
And the big one from the U.S. government.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom.
In 2002, the highest U.S. civilian honor. He received it from George W. Bush.
But there is one honor, or maybe milestone is a better word, that I think is the absolute coolest. And it happened pretty late in his life in 2011.
Yes, I know which one you mean. The genome sequencing.
Tell us about this. It's just perfect.
So in 2011, a company called Ion Torrent had developed a new device, the Personal Genome Machine. It was a massively parallel sequencing device, a new way to read DNA quickly and cheaply.
Okay.
And the very first human genome they ever sequenced on this brand new machine, it was Gordon Moore's.
That is just poetry.
It is, isn't it? Think about it. This machine, this massive parallel sequencer, is only possible because of Moore's law. It relies on the exponential growth of computing power that Moore predicted 45 years earlier.
All the data crunching requires that power.
Exactly. And now, That very power is being turned back on him to map his own DNA.
The man who predicted the explosion of computing power used that power to read his own source code.
It's a perfect, beautiful full circle, the ultimate application of his own law.
And his name is everywhere now, physically inscribed on the world. There is a library at the University of Cambridge named after him and Betty, the Moore Laboratories at Caltech.
And very recently, in 2022, Intel renamed their massive Oregon campus Gordon Moore Park.
Which is nice. A park for the outdoorsman and the fisherman.
A fitting tribute.
So as we wrap this up, what does this all mean? We have looked at the life, the introvert, the traitorous 8, the law, the Intel empire, the philanthropy.
I think we are left with a portrait of a man of immense depth and some really interesting contradictions.
He was the introverted child who ended up leading the loudest, fastest technological revolution in human history.
He was the chemist who built the computer industry. Not a computer scientist, not an electrical engineer originally, but a chemist. He understood the materials.
He was the fisherman who made billions in sterile cleanroom factories, but spent that money saving rainforests and wild rivers.
And he was the accidental entrepreneur who wasn't afraid to admit, even at the height of his fame, that his first business plan was a typo-riddled mess.
That humility is what sticks with me. He didn't set out to be a god of the valley, he just observed the data. He looked at a trend on a graph.
And that one simple observation became the heartbeat of the modern world. It set the clock for all of us.
So here is a final thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. Gordon Moore revised his law in 1975 to a 2-year doubling cycle. For almost 50 years, we have been running on that clock. Tick, tock, faster, cheaper, smaller.
But many people, many physicists and engineers, say we are reaching the physical limits of silicon now. You can only shrink a transistor so much before you're down to a handful of atoms.
Exactly. So as we look at that massive telescope he funded to see the beginning of time, and the genome sequencing he pioneered to read the code of life, we have to ask, are we still living by Moore's clock?
Or has the legacy of the quiet revolutionary finally surpassed the simple prediction he made half a century ago?
Are we entering a post-Moore world where innovation isn't just about speed and density anymore, but about the profound applications of the power he unleashed?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question facing the entire tech industry right now.
Something to think about the next time you pull out that supercomputer that you keep in your pocket. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the life of Gordon Moore.
It is a pleasure.
We will catch you on the next one. Stay curious.